Questions 15 and 16 deal with solving inequalities, just a single inequality. And then 17 through 19 deal with solving compound inequalities. We'll go ahead and look at both these sections in this video. 15 and 16 are very much like solving equations. The only difference is it's got the inequality sign. And so therefore we don't get a single solution. We actually have an infinite number of solutions because it's usually to the left or right of a certain number. There are also some special cases where you could get no solution or something like that, or everything works. But we want to solve these like solving equations. The other difference is that if we multiply or divide both sides of the equation by a negative, we have to switch the direction of the sign. So let's go ahead and start with number 15. We have 105 is less than or equal to negative 5 plus, and then I'll go ahead and distribute this 5, 35n plus 40. And just like the equations, we want to go ahead and simplify the right side by adding like terms. So we have 105 is less than 35n, and then negative 5 and 40 gives us 35. To solve, we want to solve for n, so let's go ahead and subtract 35 from both sides to help us solve for n. 105 minus 35 is 70. It's less than or equal to 35n, and we will finish by dividing both sides by 35. Actually, I shouldn't say we'll finish because I do want to check something else out here. So we have 2 is less than or equal to n. So we want to solve and graph the solution. So there is the solution, but normally we like to write the variable first with inequalities. So we'll write it n first. So which is greater? So looking at this, is n a larger value, or is 2? Well, looking at our sign, it's opening towards n. So when we rewrite this, we want our sign to still open towards n. N is greater than or equal to 2. So that's part of our answer. That's part of our solution. And then we want to graph. So what we do is we find 2. We draw a circle around it. We are going to fill in the circle because it's got the or equal to. So 2 is included. And then we want all values greater than or equal to 2. Well, values to the right of 2 are the ones that are greater than it. So here's the graph of our solution. Moving on to the next one. We want to simplify each side first. The left side can't be simplified, so we still just have 4 minus 8x is greater than. We can distribute. So negative 2 times negative 4 is 8. Negative 2 times 3 is negative 6x. Some people think, hey, we just multiplied by a negative, but remember the rule is you have to multiply both sides by that negative. So it's when you're trying to solve for x. Now, both sides are simplified. Let's get the variables to one side. With inequalities, it's helpful to get things to the left side. So let's go ahead and add 6x to both sides. And at the same time, we can go ahead and subtract 4 from both sides. And so this will be negative 2x is greater than 4. And we have to divide both sides by negative 2 to solve. But we're dividing by a negative. Make sure we switch the direction of the sign. 4 divided by negative 2 is negative 2. So this one says x is less than negative 2. We put a circle around negative 2. We do not fill it in. Don't fill, because it doesn't have the or equal to. And then we want values less than negative 2. So we go less than negative 2 is to the left. We bold the arrow here to show that it continues on and on and on. And there is our answer, or our graph, and then here's the answer. Moving on to our next questions. I'm going to go ahead and delete this one for now. Just so we have room to work with these other ones. Compound, we remember OR is just anything that covers the graph. When we graph our inequalities, I'll show you what that means. I usually put it a little bit above the number line, and then I'll put my answer on the number line, because there are some things that can happen where you don't want to just graph it right on the number line to start with, because it might kind of get messy because you might have to erase things or cross things out. So we have two inequalities to solve. We have 9k minus 1 is less than or equal to negative 73. And we have negative 4k plus 9 is less than negative 31. So let's go ahead and solve these individually. We'll add 1 to both sides here. That gives us 9k is less than or equal to negative 72. We will divide both sides by 9 to solve for k. We're not dividing by a negative, so we don't change the direction of the sign. Negative 72 divided by 9, so we're dividing both sides by 9, is negative 8. So let's squeeze that on here. K is less than or equal to negative 8. And once again, I'm going to put that above the graph. Less than or equal to is that way. We should fill in the circle. And then going to the blue part, we can subtract 9. That gives us negative 4k is less than negative 40. We would divide both sides by negative 4, and since we're dividing by a negative, we need to switch the direction of the sign to greater than. K is greater than, so we're switching the direction of the sign. 10. Well, graphing that, k is greater than 10. That's this way. It's just a greater than sign, doesn't have the or equal to, so we leave it open. Now, this is an or, so we want anywhere that's covered. So this is kind of one of our standard cases where it's or, and it's going to be things less than negative 8 or greater than or equal to 10. Sorry, greater than 10, not or equal to for this side. So we can write or, we can circle this, and we have our graph. Do not try to combine or into one single expression with a couple different inequality signs. So if it's or, we're just going to leave it as two separate expressions there, or two separate inequalities, not combine it into one. Now number 18 is combined into one. And the way that we solve this is we're going to split this up into two. This says negative 70 is less than or equal to 8a minus 6. So negative 70 is less than or equal to 8a minus 6. But at the same time, it's saying that 8a minus 6 is less than 10. 8a minus 6 is less than 10. And when it's combined like this, it means and. So we have that and connector in there. We solve each of these individually. So we can add 6 to both sides. We get negative 64. So just be careful about your arithmetic. Is less than or equal to 8a. We'll divide both sides by 8. We're not dividing by a negative, so we don't have to switch the sign. So this is negative 8 is less than or equal to a. And then we can solve the blue. Well, we can come up here. Some people like to write this as a is greater than or equal to negative 8. A is the larger part, so it actually goes like this, going right over that other red. Now solving the blue, we can add 6 to both sides. 8a is less than 16, divide both sides by 8, and you get a is less than 2. Well, a is less than 2, here's 2, open circle, goes this way, and our solution will be where those two things would overlap each other. Well, that is from negative 8 all the way up to 2, but not including 2 because it's got that open circle there. So the solution we should put actually on our number line, touching the number line, as part of the number line, from -8 all the way up to 2, and we put an open circle at 2. We can combine this into one equation. Looking at the black I just graphed on there, we start with our leftmost, -8 is less than, and we put or equal to because it is filled in. Our variable, which in this case is a, which is less than our rightmost point, which is 2. And we don't put the or equal to because it's an open circle. So there's how you solve that one. And then remember, lastly, we had one more compound one here that we kind of erased, so we need to bring that back and see that so we can solve it. Oops, I did the wrong thing there. I think that should be enough room for us. And so we want to solve this one. This is another conjunction or and, so we're looking at and here. We're going to solve these two individually. There's not much I can do. Well, you can't simplify each side, so we're just going to start solving. We would subtract 5n from both sides. So this is 8 plus 2n is greater than or equal to -2. Subtract 8 from both sides. I'm trying to really squeeze it in here. We got 2n is greater than or equal to -10. And then we would divide both sides by 2. I don't have room to write it, but dividing both sides by 2, we can do it. We'll just get rid of this for right now. So dividing both sides by 2, we get n is greater than or equal to -5. So n is greater than or equal to -5. That's over here. Let's solve our other one. This is 5n plus 8 is less than 8 minus 8n. Let's add 8n to both sides. We get 13n plus 8 is less than 8. We'll subtract 8 from both sides. 13n is less than 0. Divide both sides by 13. And you get n is less than 0. So here's 0. We want less than that, so that goes this direction. And again, this is an and, so we're looking for wherever they overlap, and they overlap from -5, open circle, all the way up to 0, which is also an open circle. So there's the graph, and then we can write the solution as -5, our leftmost number, is less than our variable's n, which is less than 0. And there you have inequalities solved and compound inequalities solved. I do want to just go over one more thing here, so I'm going to erase my answer just so you remember. Remember, sometimes we can have these number lines, and we might have something like this when we graph above. If we had this graph and the word were or, if it was or, whatever is covered on the number line is part of our answer. So from here over is covered. So our answer would just actually reduce to x is greater than -3. Oops, didn't mean to cross out that or. Kind of looking at the same thing, -3, 0, and maybe we had a same thing, same look, but the word and. Well, and means where they overlap, so be careful. They overlap here. So our answer for this one would just be x is greater than or equal to 0. So just be careful of those couple of different things.